Robert Jenrick joins me now. He was the Immigration Minister before his resignation over the Rwanda Bill. He's also Tory MP for Newark. Robert, lovely to see you this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I'm interested in your political journey. On one hand, you sort of came into Cabinet because you were Rishi Sunak ally, and now you seem to have done a pivot towards Suella Braverman, sort of siding with the right of the party. How's that come about?
Well, I've always believed very strongly on these issues, particularly on immigration. I think that illegal migration is doing untold damage to our country, and the stakes are extremely high, and we have to take action. And legal migration was a promise that we made, not just in our last manifesto, but in every manifesto for nigh on 30 years. And yet we're living in a country where 750,000 people are coming in legally every year. And so on these two issues and others, I feel extremely strongly, and we need to take greater action as a government to protect the country from this great challenge.
But you're saying that this Rwanda bill isn't tough enough. I mean, obviously there's been warnings from the likes of Isaac Levido and others about the Conservatives' campaign for the general election being undermined by people like you. You know, it's unite or die. You can understand that perspective. I mean, the bill's gone through, this rebellion fizzled out. Why was that?
Well, look, I will continue to make the argument. You're right to say that the government won the votes in the House of Commons, and the amendments that I put forward were ultimately unsuccessful. I chose to vote against the bill because I felt that it's a weak bill that ultimately won't work. And we will have to see now if in August there are still small boats crossing the channel, then it will be shown that my argument was right and the government's was wrong. But I hope, of course, that the Prime Minister is successful, because I want to see the small boats stop. I think this is doing immense damage. Think of the hotels, the billions of pounds are being wasted, the people who are dying in the Channel, the people smugglers that are feasting on this appalling trade. I want to see the small boats stop. I believe that the way to do that is through the most robust action, and that view is formed having travelled around the world, having seen that the only countries in the world that have fixed this problem, Australia and Greece in recent years, chose to take the hardest path. That's what I was proposing. The Prime Minister ultimately wanted to do a different way. Why do you think the Prime Minister wouldn't listen to you? I mean, you and Suella were at the sharp end of things at the Home Office. I mean, is it poor leadership skills? Is it a lack of understanding of the electoral calamity he faces with the threat from reform? What is he pig-headed? What's the answer? I think you have to ask him. I think he genuinely believes that the bill that he is proposing will work. I take a different view, and we'll have to see, won't we? Is he just
being naive? Is he naive? What is this?
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to comment on the Prime Minister's motivations. I think he understands the problem, but to me, having seen it at the absolute sharp end, having visited residents of Dover whose homes have been broken into by illegal migrants, having seen the aftermath of riots in Knowsley, where there was a hotel that created immense community issues, having been to North Africa and seen the people smugglers and traffickers in places like Algeria and Tunisia and Libya, I think this is an immense challenge, and not one that's just a fleeting issue. No. It's going to be with us for many decades to come, and I want to insulate the UK from that. That was why I resigned from government. That's why I proposed these amendments.
Are you going to campaign next for us to leave the ECHR?
Well, I think that our membership of the ECHR is unsustainable. I think that will become clearer and clearer to the British public in the months and the years ahead. It was a separate debate from the one we've just had in the House of Commons on the bill, because I don't think we actually have to leave the ECHR to fix the small boats crisis. But it is a debate I think now we do need to engage in as a party for the Conservatives and as a country, and it's one that I want to be at the forefront of.
When you were in the Home Office, I mean, we've heard a lot of this since John Reid was in the helm, actually, and talking about it being a basket case and it's just crazy, and there's even an argument that different departments need to be hived off. It's just too big and unwieldy. What's your impression of it? I mean, do the people working in the Home Office have a grip on immigration, both legal and illegal?
Well, I think it's a bad captain who blames his crew, but it was a department that faced immense challenges, and you saw in recent years some of those issues, like this backlog of cases that grew up, like the appalling waste of taxpayers' money with hotels. I think there is a lack of operational expertise there, because billions of pounds of taxpayers' money is being spent, and you need really good people to be doing the job, bringing in expertise from the private sector, for example, and more accountability as well for officials who get things wrong.
Should we split the Home Office up, do you think?
I think there's a case for doing that. and creating a very tough borders department, which is solely focused on securing our borders, stopping illegal migration. But I mean, that's really for another day.
Ideological opposition. Priti Patel spoke about this a bit. You know, she's trying to pull on a lever and then the civil service are pulling on the opposite lever.
I think there's a degree of that, and this is a highly charged issue, but also the web of legal arrangements that we have allowed to rise up over recent years and decades, whether that's the treaties like the ECHR, which are now very out of date. They're all created in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War, a very different world, where there was just a few million people on the move. Today there are tens, probably hundreds of millions of people on the move, either fleeing genuine war and persecution or in most cases looking for better economic prospects. And so you need a fundamentally different settlement, both internationally and domestically, to solve that problem. And I'm afraid you do need to embrace the toughest policies if you genuinely want to fix this problem, rather than just dealing with the symptoms.
And yet we read in yesterday's Telegraph that 16,000 asylum seekers who arrived here illegally by boat have been given jobs.
Yes, I think that's wrong. I don't agree that asylum seekers should work. There is a very long-standing policy that dates back to the Labour government in 2005 to allow people who've been here for a year to work in certain occupations where there are supposedly shortages. But it just creates a pull factor to the UK, and almost everyone who comes here is either an economic migrant or a sort of asylum shopper, because they're coming from safe countries like France and choosing to come to the UK because they think life is better here or a softer touch. And so I don't think that's the right approach. There were actually members of Parliament, members of the House of Lords, mostly on the opposition benches, who wanted to reduce that 12 months to just 6 months, and we resisted that. What I did as Minister was double the fines, in fact triple the fines for illegal working, and increase the raids by 50% that are going out to see workplaces like car washes, care homes, nail bars, etc., typical places where illegal migrants can be found working. Because you've got to make the UK less of a soft touch, reduce the pull factor here, so that somebody who is sitting in Germany or France or Belgium doesn't feel the urge to come here to the UK. And if you talk to those countries, like the French, for example, the two of the biggest factors they say drive people to come to the UK are how easy it is to work in the black market here and access to public services like the NHS.
Let's have some clarity, hopefully from you, on legal migration. Should there be a cap on it, and what should it be?
Well, I think that legal migration is in many respects the bigger issue than illegal, because the numbers are so great and the damage it's doing to the country is very significant. It's felt by so many people. Do
we need to go back to tens of thousands, as promised by David Cameron all those years ago?
Well, I'm not sure that an arbitrary target is the right approach, although I'm not averse to it. We'd have to think very carefully about what it is.
Why not? I mean, that's what people watching and listening to this want.
Well, I want to get it down to...
Cap the numbers at 200,000,
Well, I certainly think it should be 200,000 or lower each year. Whether or not we get down to tens of thousands, I think you'd have to think carefully about that. But the kind of ballpark that the public want to see is around that level. If you look at the polling, people want to see it in the tens of thousands, and they have no idea quite how many people are coming in. There's a recent poll that came out.
The Home Office doesn't seem to have any idea how many people are coming in.
Has very poor data. But my argument is that it's causing huge damage to the economy, because it means that people and employers are undercutting British workers' wages. They're not investing in technology to improve productivity. It's created a huge issue for housing, an issue that I've campaigned on for many years. And I think the housing crisis today is as much an immigration crisis as it is one about housing.
We've only got a minute left, so a couple more questions for you. You want to see a ban on face coverings at protests. Why?
I do. If you look at those protests, for example, about Gaza in recent months, I think it's completely wrong that people are able to be on the streets wearing masks. It means that it's very hard for the police to arrest them, to hold lawbreakers to account, and it makes many people feel very nervous and uneasy on the streets. It's very intimidating, so I want to see the law changed. And final question. I've noted that you've lost some weight. You've had a haircut. You're positioning yourself against Rishi Sunak. You seem to be gaining support, particularly among the right of the party. I know you're having conversations with the New Conservatives. Are you lining yourself up to be a future Tory leader? That's not my intention. Come on now, Robert. All politicians are ambitious people. Well, look, what I am trying to do is to make an argument, and part of that is around illegal migration. I think that for too long, too few politicians have gone and argued that we need to take the most robust action. And so if I can help the Conservative Party by making that argument very strongly, then I will do, because I think there is a path to victory at the next general election, but it goes through taking the strongest possible approach on migration.
Final yes or no question, though. Would you stand as leader in the future?
Honestly, Camilla, I'm not giving that any thought.
So it's not a no, I note.
Well, look, I'm not ruling it out, but that's not my intention here. What I really want to do is make and hopefully win this central argument for the Conservative Party's future.
Robert Jenrick, thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
Lovely to speak to you.